Hello, friends. About 99% of friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and helps the channel grow. Also, let me know in the comments from which country you are watching the video. I ain't the kind of man who scares easy, not after 20 years of hauling freight up and down these highways. But there are nights out here when the road feels alive, like it's breathing beneath your tires and watching you from the tree line with eyes you can't see, but sure as hell can feel now, before you go thinking I'm some washed-up old trucker, making up stories to pass the time. You need to understand, I didn't believe any of this crap, either not until that one night out on Route 47 when my rig became the only light in a stretch of darkness. So thick it felt like driving through oil. It was past midnight. I'd been running on too much coffee and too little sleep. The CB was dead, quiet, not a soul out there but me and the endless blacktop when I saw something in my mirror. Not headlights, no, not even taillights. It was a figure running fast on all fours like a dog, but bigger, way too big, long limbs, bending wrong like broken sticks, snapping with every step. I thought maybe I was seeing things. Fatigue playing tricks on me, so I rubbed my eyes, but when I looked again, it was closer, much closer. Close enough to see it had no face, just smooth, pale skin stretched tight over skull as it loped alongside my trailer, keeping pace at 65 miles an hour. I slammed my foot down hard, praying the rig would outrun it. But the thing didn't even flinch, didn't slow, didn't stop. It just kept running like it was waiting for me to make a mistake and run out of road or guts, and I swear I could hear it. Breathing through the steel walls, a wet, ragged sound like lungs full of water, every hair on my neck standing straight. As I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. And then the headlights flickered, not for long, just a second, but in that second, I thought I saw more than dozens, maybe hundreds of those faceless things crawling out of the ditches, and trees their bodies twisting as they swarmed the shoulder. Like ants drawn to sugar, I kept my eyes dead ahead, fighting the urge to look in the mirrors again, because I knew if I saw how many there really were, I might freeze up. And that'd be it for me. The air inside the cab grew icy, my breath fogging up the glass, though it was late summer, the heater running full blast. I could see my own breath coming out in panic clouds like smoke, and that's when the CB crackled to life, a voice whispering low, barely above static. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. My blood turned cold because I hadn't touched the radio. It had been silent for hours, and now it was warning me like some ghostly guardian, and I wanted to shout back, ask who the hell they were. But before I could, the voice was gone, replaced by static, then silence again. And I swear on my mother's grave, I heard laughter faint at first, but growing louder, like a crowd gathering to watch a show, the laughter echoing inside my skull, until I felt like I'd lose my mind if I didn't get off that road fast. But there were no exits, no rest. Stops, no lights, nothing but the endless black ribbon of highways stretching on forever, and the sound of something heavy dragging against the trailer. Walls scrape, scrape, scrape. Like claws testing the metal for a weak spot. I was praying, now muttering every prayer I ever learned as a kid, though I hadn't set foot in a church in 30 years. And then, without warning, the rig jerked hard to the left tire, screeching, as if something had grabbed the trailer, and yanked me toward the ditch. I wrestled the wheel back hard, pounding so loud I thought it did explode in my chest, the engine howling in protest, as I pushed her to 90, praying she'd hold together the gauges, all dancing like they'd gone mad. And just when I thought I'd lose control completely, the road curved sharply, and suddenly everything went silent. No wind, no engine, no road noise, just dead, quiet. I realized I wasn't moving any more than my foot was still on the gas pedal, the tachometer needle stuck at zero, headlights shining into endless fog, so thick it swallowed the beams whole. I killed the engine and sat there, hands shaking, trying to steady my breathing. And that's when I heard a voice outside the cab, a child's voice, soft and sweet, calling my name in the dark. Mr. Hall, come play with us. I froze, my blood running colder than ice, because I hadn't told a soul my name, not out here, not on this run. But whoever or whatever was out there knew it. And as the fog began to thin, I saw them standing in the road, dozens of kids, holding hands, forming a circle, their eyes black pits, their mouths hanging open wider and wider until their jaws unhinged like snakes, and they screamed in unison, a sound so high and sharp it felt like knives stabbing into my ears. I slammed the rig into gear, flooring it, but the wheels spun uselessly like I was stuck in mud. I felt something slam against the back of the trailer, hard enough to shake the whole cab once, twice, 3 times. I screamed right back at them like some madman, pounding the dash, begging her to move. And just when I thought I was done for, the tires caught traction, and the rig lurched forward, barreling through fog, and I didn't look back, not even when I heard those voices shrieking, "Don't leave us, don't leave us," fading into the distance as I tore down the highway faster than I'd ever driven in my life, my hands gripping the wheel like it was a lifeline, eyes locked on a thin strip of road illuminated ahead. And when I finally saw the glow of a truck stop in the distance, I felt tears streaming down my face, relief and terror mixing in a way I can't describe. I pulled in hard brakes, screaming, and parked crooked across two spots. Didn't care, didn't move, just sat there shaking until the sun came up, and even then I couldn't bring myself to open the door, because I swear I could still hear tiny hands scratching at the trailer from the inside. I didn't move for hours, just sat there with the engine off, hands still gripping the wheel so tight my fingers ached, staring at the smudged glass of the windshield, while the faint sound of scratching kept echoing from the trailer, like little nails dragging across steel, even though the sun was up and truckers were coming and going, a lot honking, laughing, fueling up. I couldn't bring myself to step outside, because some deep primal part of me was sure that if I opened that door, they'd be waiting. Those kids with black pits for eyes and mouths stretched too wide, standing in a neat circle around my rig, singing my name in that high-pitched voice, "Mr. Hall, Mr. Hall, come play with us." I could almost hear it carried on the breeze, though there wasn't a breeze, not even a whisper wind, like the air itself was holding its breath. And that's when my radio crackled again, faint at first, then louder, like someone tuning in through layers of static, the voice low, gravelly, not the same sweet, childlike tone from the night before, but something older, darker. It said, "You can't run forever, truck of the road always comes back around." I slammed my fist against the dash, yelling, "Leave me the hell alone." But the voice only laughed, a hollow sound that seemed to echo inside my skull until my vision blurred. I started the engine, needing the sound of the diesel to drown out whatever was happening in my head, but even over the rumble, I swore I heard whispering in the sleeper behind me. I hadn't been back there all night, too scared to even draw the curtain, but now something was moving back there, slow, deliberate, like a hand sliding across fabric. And when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I caught sight of a shape tall, impossibly thin, pressed against the curtain, bulging out slightly, as if it was leaning against the fabric, listening to my every breath. I stomped on the throttle of the rig, lurching forward, tires squealing as I tore out of that lot like a bat out of hell. I didn't care who I cut off or how fast I was going. I just knew I had to get away from whatever was crawling around in my sleep. At the road ahead was a blur of sunlight and asphalt, but my eyes kept darting to the mirror, catching glimpses of movement back there, shadows twisting and writhing like a nest of snakes. Every so often I'd hear a faint tap, tap, tap on the inside of the cab, like fingers drumming along. The walls of my stomach churned, because I knew deep down that whatever I'd let hitch a ride wasn't human, maybe never had been. And as I pushed the speedometer needle higher, praying I wouldn't blow a tire or lose control, I caught sight of a sign flashing by too fast to read. But in the instant it passed, I could swear it said, "Welcome back, trucker," in big black letters, and below that, scrawled in red, like blood, "We've been waiting for you, my heart." Nearly stopped. I didn't recognize the stretch of road it felt. Wrong somehow, too smooth, too perfect, no. Cracks, no potholes, no other vehicles, just endless highway stretching straight as a ruler with trees lining both sides, so thick their branches intertwined above, like a tunnel blocking out the sun and casting everything in a sickly green glow. I turned up the radio, hoping for music or a voice, anything to anchor me to reality, but all I got was static. Then, faintly buried beneath it, I heard the laughter again, dozens, maybe hundreds of voices, overlapping, giggling, whispering, calling my name over and over. Haul, haul, haul. Like a chant, my hands trembled on the wheel, sweat dripping down my back, though the air was ice cold, and I knew deep down I'd made a mistake. I should have never stopped last night, should have never let the fog surround me, because now I wasn't on any road. I recognized I was somewhere else, somewhere that looked like the highway, but wasn't, and no matter how far I drove, the odometer wasn't ticking over, like I was burning fuel, going nowhere, trapped in a loop as the voices grew louder, merging into one guttural growl, saying, "Turn around," and I felt the wheel jerk in my hands, pulling me toward the shoulder, as if some unseen force had taken control. I fought it, teeth gritted, screaming no, but the rig kept veering, left tires screeching against the asphalt, until I caught sight of a figure, standing dead center in the lane ahead, a tall, thin man in a filthy trucker cap and plaid shirt skin pale, as wax eyes hollow black sockets were his nose. Should have been nothing but two slits like melted wax in his mouth. Oh God, his mouth hung open wider than it should have stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged yellow teeth. And as I barreled down on him at 90, he didn't flinch, didn't move, just raised one long bony arm and pointed straight at me. All right, I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers felt like they'd snap, and I screamed at the top of my lungs as the figure's hollow black eyes seemed to widen, and his jagged teeth clacked together with a sound like breaking glass. I yanked the wheel hard to the right, praying the trailer wouldn't jackknife, and the rig swerved so violently I felt two tires leave the asphalt for a heartbeat before slamming back down with a jolt that rattled every bone in my body. I missed the thing by inches, but as I blew past, I caught a stench so foul it made my stomach lurch, a mixture of rot and diesel fuel. And for just a split second, I swear I saw dozens of hands clawing up from the road itself, pale fingers reaching to the blacktop, grasping at my tires, trying to pull me down into whatever hell lay beneath the asphalt. I gunned it faster than I've ever dared before my eyes locked on a horizon. But no matter how far I drove, the road didn't change, the trees didn't thin, and the light stayed locked in. That same sickly green glow time felt wrong, like it wasn't moving at all. The clock on my dash stuck at 3:33, blinking over and over, as if mocking me. Then out of nowhere the radio blared to life. So loud, I nearly jumped out of my seat. A child's voice, singing a broken nursery rhyme, ring around the rosy pocket. Full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. I shouted at the radio to shut up, but the voice only grew louder, overlapping with dozens more, until it became a deafening chorus of laughter and screams. I slammed my fist into the radio, but it didn't even crack, just kept playing louder and louder until my ears rang and blood trickled from my nose. And in the middle of all that noise, I heard a whisper, so clear it felt like it came from right behind my ear. "You can't leave, Mr. Hall. You're one of us now." My heart stopped, and I risked a glance in the rear-view mirror, and what I saw nearly made me lose control again. Because there in the sleeper, crouched like some grotesque insect, was a thing. Wearing my face only wrong, its skin gray and sagging, its eyes black pits leaking thick, oily tears, its mouth stretching wider and wider as it grinned at me, and in a voice that was almost but not quite mine, it said, "You've been running this road too long, haul time to park for good." I tore my eyes from the mirror and focused on the road ahead. But it was too late. The horizon was gone, replaced by a massive wall of fog, so dense it looked solid. I had no choice. I plunged into it head first, and for a moment everything went completely black. No engine noise, no tires on asphalt, no heartbeat, just nothing. Then faintly I began to hear a low rumble growing louder like an approaching storm, until headlights blazed out of the fog. Directly ahead, a semi barreling straight toward me, horn blaring. I screamed and cranked the wheel, but there was nowhere to go. The trees pressed tight on both sides, and I braced for impact, but instead of hitting me, the other rig passed right through like smoke, and as it did, I caught sight of the driver, and my blood ran ice cold, because it was me staring back hollow-eyed and grinning wide, as my ghostly double-mouthed words I couldn't hear, but somehow understood, "See you soon," before vanishing into fog. The shock made me lose my grip, the wheel spinning wildly as the rig skidded sideways, tires screeching. Then suddenly the fog cleared, and I was back on an empty stretch of highway, morning sunlight streaming to the windshield as if nothing had happened. But I didn't feel relief, not even close, because the clock on the dash still read 3:33, and from the sleeper came a faint wet laugh that sounded just like mine. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead, refusing to glance in the mirrors again, because I knew if I saw that thing in my sleeper smiling at me with my own face, I might lose it completely. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely keep the rig steady, and every time I blinked, I swore I could still see the pale, faceless kids standing in the road, their mouths opening wider than any human mouth should, whisper my name in voices that echoed like wind through a hollow tunnel. I told myself over and over it wasn't real. I was just tired. I needed to find a truck stop, get some sleep. But deep down, I knew sleep wouldn't help. Not anymore, not after whatever I'd seen. Whatever had followed me into this cab. The radio crackled again, faint static, turning into a garbled voice, almost robotic, like it was breaking through from another dimension. It said, "Hall, exit 17, don't miss it, or you'll never leave." I didn't remember any exit. 17 on this stretch of road. Hell, I didn't remember ever seeing exits at all. anymore, just endless blacktop lined with trees that leaned closer every mile like they wanted to swallow me whole. I kept driving, eyes darting from sign to sign. But all I saw were broken mile markers twisted like they'd been melted. And then there was exit 17, but the sign was wrong, letters written in a language I couldn't read, symbols that seemed to shift when I tried to focus on them. And beneath it, smeared in what looked like blood, was a single word. Leave. My gut screamed at me to take it even. Though every part of my brain said this was a trap, I jerked the wheel toward the off-ramp tires, skidding, and the rig shuddered violently as if the road itself was trying to hold me back. But I forced it down the ramp, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles cracked, the off-ramp twisted, and turned more than it should have, sharp hairpin bends that made my trailer groan and sway like it would tip over. But somehow I held it steady, and after what felt like forever, I burst out onto a narrow two-lane road lined with old telephone poles leaning at odd angles, their wires humming with a sound like distant screaming. I slowed down, slightly, heart pounding so loud I could hear in my ears. And that's when I noticed every pole had something nailed to it, old Polaroid photos, hundreds of them fluttering in the breeze. And as I passed, I realized they were all pictures of trucks, my truck, dozens of shots from every angle, like someone had been following me for years. My stomach churned as I caught sight of one photo where I was in the driver's seat smiling, except I wasn't smiling. I don't ever remember smiling like that. And my eyes in the photo were pitch black like the thing in my sleeper. I slammed the accelerator, wanting nothing more than to get off this road. But the faster I went, the more the photos blurred together until they formed a continuous wall on both sides, faces staring out at me, mouths wide in silent screams. And then the CB came. Alive again, the voice clearer this time, dripping with malice. No point running, Hall, you're already home. I screamed back, shut up, just shut up. But the voice only laughed deep guttural like gravel rolling in a steel drum. And then I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, fingers digging into my flesh, even through my jacket. I didn't dare look, but I saw in the side mirror a long gray arm reaching from the sleeper, ending in a hand with fingers too long, too thin, the nails sharp as knives, and the thing whispered in my ear, "Park the truck, Hall, let us in." I slammed my foot harder on the accelerator, praying the rig would hold together as the engine roared in protest, the RPM needle redlining. But I didn't care. I wasn't going to let whatever crawled out of my sleeper put its cold, dead hands on me. I could feel its fingers tightening, digging into my shoulder with unnatural strength. As a low, wet chuckle vibrated through the cab, like it was inside my skull, I screamed at the top of my lungs, not words, just raw terror and rage, as I wrenched the wheel side to side, hoping maybe, just maybe, I could throw it off. But the thing's grip didn't budge, didn't loosen. It leaned in closer. And I swear I could feel its breath hot and sticky on my neck as it whispered almost lovingly in my ear, "Stop fighting, you've been driving so long, Hall, it's time to rest forever." I shouted an oath, slamming the heel of my hand into the dash again. And again, like somehow it would help, like somehow I could wake up from this, but deep down, I knew this wasn't a dream, this was real. This was happening, and I had no idea how much longer I could hold on. My vision started to blur, the edges of the world growing dark as the cab seemed to stretch and twist around me, the walls bending inward like I was inside the belly of some enormous beast. The road outside was gone, replaced with endless rows of teeth, sharp and glistening, as if I was barreling down the throat of a giant snake. And the sound of hundreds of voices whispering my name filled the air, Hall, 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 over and over until it felt like my ears would bleed. Then, without warning, the rig jolted violently, throwing me forward into the steering wheel, the horn blaring. As my forehead struck its stars, exploding in my vision, I tasted blood in my mouth as I fumbled to stay conscious. And that's when I saw them outside the windshield, a sea of faces pressed against the glass, blank, pale faces with wide, gaping mouths and eyes like black pits stretching on forever as far as I could see. They weren't standing on the road, they were. The road, thousands of bodies, all melted together, their arms reaching up, clawing at the undercarriage of the truck, trying to drag it down into their mass. I could feel the rig slowing no matter how hard. I floored the gas, the tires screamed, spinning against a surface that wasn't asphalt anymore, but flesh soft and wet and writhing like a living thing. I screamed again, louder than ever, gripping the wheel, so hard my nails split and bled. But I refused to let go. I refused to stop, because I knew if the truck stopped again, they'd pull me out, and I'd be just another face in the road forever. I don't know where the strength came from, but I slammed the gear shift down hard into low, praying for traction. The engine howled like a dying animal as the wheels finally caught, and the truck surged forward, ripping free from the clutching hands with a sound like tearing meat. And just like that, the world snapped back to teeth, the faces, the voices, all gone, replaced by a normal highway under bright daylight, birds singing in the distance like nothing had happened. But I wasn't fooled. I didn't slow down. I didn't stop. I just kept driving, gripping the wheel with white knuckles as sweat poured down my face, and every nerve in my body screamed that wasn't over, not by a long shot. And then I heard again, faint but clear from the sleeper, a perfect imitation of my own voice, low and mocking, saying, "You can't run forever, Hall." I didn't answer it. I didn't even breathe. I just stared dead ahead, watching the asphalt rush beneath my wheels like a black river. Because I knew if I so much as looked in the mirrors, I'd see it back there, my own face, grinning wide with those dead eyes, leaking black tears. The sound of its voice slithered to the cab, curling around my mind. Like smoke, you can't keep the wheels turning forever. Truck of the road always takes us. Do my hands hurt from gripping the wheel? So tight my knuckles cracked and bled, but I didn't dare ease up. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I slowed even a little, the rig would seize up and stop. And then they'd come the children with their hollow mouths, the long-armed thing from the sleeper, and the endless pale faces pressing to the road. I blinked, and for a split second the horizon ahead rippled like heat waves. But it wasn't hot. The air was cold, so cold I could see my breath fogging up the cab despite the heater running. Full blast, and then I noticed something strange about the mile markers. They were counting down instead of up. 23, 22, 21. My stomach dropped as I realized I wasn't going forward at all. I was heading straight back to wherever this all started. I screamed, slamming the accelerator harder. But the needle didn't move the rig. Speed stayed locked at 33, like the dash clock, which still blinked 3:33 mockingly. I slammed the radio power button over and over, but the static wouldn't stop. A chorus of whispering voices now merging together into a single sound, a low guttural hum that made my teeth vibrate. Then the CB crackled, and a new voice cut through, clear and calm like a tired old trucker. "Hall, you listening, boy?" My heart leapt into my throat. I grabbed the mic and shouted back, "Yeah, I'm here." "Who is this?" The voice paused and sighed, deep and weary like a man carrying a lifetime of regret. "Doesn't matter who I am. All you gotta know is you're in the loop now, and there ain't no easy way out. What loop I?" "Yo, what the hell are you talk about?" The loop, boy, the endless road, the place between places where the lost souls of the highway wander forever. Your wheels are still turning, but you ain't go anywhere, he said. I felt a chill run down my spine as I glanced at the fuel gauge, still full despite driving for what felt like hours, days, even maybe longer time. "Don't work right here," the voice went on. "You've been marked, Hall, ever since you picked up that load back in Stockton." I gritted my teeth. "What load?" "There's been hundreds over the years. The one that wasn't meant for this world," the voice said flatly. "That cursed crate. You didn't check the bill of lading, did you?" I thought back, trying to remember, but it was all a blur. Stockton, some small warehouse out by the docks, an unmarked crate, heavier than it should have been, and sealed tight with black wax and barbed wire. I remember the foreman wouldn't meet my eyes when he signed off on it, and his hands were shaking when he said, "Get out of here fast and don't stop till you do." My stomach turned as a memory hit me like a punch to the gut. "What's in the damn crate?" I asked, the voice let out a low chuckle. "You really want to know, boy?" "No," I whispered. I didn't, but part of me had to hear it. "It's some Hall, the lost ones, the children thing in your sleeper. They've been riding with you ever since, waiting for you at the park, waiting for you to open the doors and let them out." I felt a rise in my throat as a sound came from the trailer, a deep, heavy thump like something huge shifting its weight, followed by a soft, dragging noise across the metal floor, and a child's giggle, faint but clear. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ate, the sound of that faint giggle echoing to the cab like it came from everywhere and nowhere all at once. I tightened my grip on the wheel, my knuckles white slick with sweat as my heart pounded so loud it felt like it was trying to tear out my chest. The voice on the CB crackled again, steady and calm like it had all the time in the world. "Don't you hear them, Hall? They're restless now. You've been running too long in there. Hungry." I slammed the mic button, yelling, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." But the voice only chuckled low and cruel. "Ain't no point in yelling, boy. The road's got its hooks in you deep." I felt my stomach churn as another heavy thump rocked the trailer, making the whole rig shudder, followed by a slow, deliberate scrape, like long fingernails dragging across the metal walls. My breath came in short, panicked gasps as I stole a glance in the mirror, praying I wouldn't see anything but my own wide, terrified eyes staring back. But then I saw A movement in the sleeper curtain rippling like something was breathing behind it, the fabric bulging inward, as if a hand was pressing against it, fingers splayed impossibly wide. I jerked my eyes back to the road, gripping the wheels so tight my fingers went numb. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I could hear the whispers, now clear as day, haul, 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 over. And over each voice different, old, young, male, female, a chorus of the damned, and my own voice. Among them laughing low and wet like A. Broken record, the road ahead rippled again, and the trees on either side seemed to lean closer, their gnarled branches twisting together, forming shapes that looked disturbingly like faces, screaming faces, their mouths open wide in silent agony. I felt about a rise in my throat as the radio spat static, then cleared, and the voice came back softer, almost sympathetic. "You've been hauling their pain a long time now, boy. Don't you think it's time to let go?" I shook my head, violently muttering, "No, no, no, I can't. Stop if I stop. They'll take me, they'll drag me down into whatever hellhole they came from." But deep down a part of me wondered if I was already there, if I'd been driving in circles through hell all this time. My eyes dart the clock, still stuck at 3:33, blinking steadily, like a heartbeat mocking me. And then the headlights flickered once, twice, and the dashboard lights dimmed as a deep guttural growl rumbled to the cab, so low I felt it in my bones. And a cold wind blasted from the vents, carrying with it a stench of rot and burning hair. I gagged, slamming the heater controls, but they didn't respond. The wind only grew colder, the smell stronger, until I swore I could hear faint screams carried on at dozens, maybe hundreds, overlapping in a cacophony of pure suffering. Then the steering wheel jerked violently in my hands, trying to turn on its own, as if unseen hands were wresting control from me. I fought back, muscles straining, veins bulging in my arms, as I screamed, and oh, this is my rig. You don't get to go dry, but the force only grew stronger, pulling me toward the shoulder, where the shadows seemed to writhe and twist, forming into humanoid shapes, pale and faceless, reaching out with long, spindly arms, as if inviting me to join them. I screamed through gritted teeth as I fought the wheel, every muscle in my arms burning like fire, while the rig kept veering toward the shoulder, where those pale, writhing shapes were reaching out for me, their long fingers brushing against the trailer. As I roared back, "Oh, not today, not ever!" The tires screeched against the asphalt, and for a moment I thought they'd finally pull me off the road. But somehow I held on, yanking the wheel hard enough to make my shoulders pop. The rig jerked violently back into the lane, the trailer swaying dangerously as I slammed my foot to the floor, praying the old girl would hold together. The engine roared like a dying beast, and I could feel every bolt and rivet in her frame straining as the speedometer climbed past 90, the wind outside howling so loud it drowned out the whispers, but not the laughter, that wet gurgling sound coming from the sleeper, like something choking on its own blood. I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to see it, but I could feel its eyes boring into me, cold and heavy, like a weight pressing down on my chest, my vision blurred with sweat and tears. But I kept my foot on the gas, refusing to let up, even as the road ahead began to twist and ripple like a snake writhing beneath the tires, the painted lines curling into strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dark red. Like old blood, the CB crackled again, and the voice was back low and mocking. "You can run, haul, but you can't hide. This ain't your rig. No more, this ain't your road. No more, this ain't even your body. No more." I shouted, "Shut up, just shut the hell up." But my voice cracked with fear, because a part of me felt it too, like my hands weren't really my own anymore, like my legs were moving without me, my foot pressing the gas harder and harder until the needle quivered at 100, my heart hammering so fast it felt like it had exploded in my chest. Then from the corner of my eye I saw the reflection in the driver's side mirror, and my blood turned to ice, staring back at me. Wasn't my face anymore. It was a thing's pale, sagging gray skin stretched over my features, its eyes bottomless pits, weeping black ichor, and its mouth pulled back in a grin so wide it split the corners of its face. The reflection raised a finger to its lips in a shushing gesture and whispered in my own voice, "You're just cargo. Now haul the rig." Shuddered hard, and the headlights flickered again, plunging the cab into darkness for a single heartbeat, and in that instant I felt something wrap around my neck, cold and slick, like a snake, tightening, squeezing, cutting off my breath. I clawed at it with both hands, wheel slipping as the rig swerved across both lanes, but I couldn't get a grip, my fingers sinking into something soft and wet like raw meat as the pressure grew tighter, spots dancing in my vision, my lungs screaming for air. And then I heard the children's voices again, all around me, outside, inside, above, below, singing in unison, ring around the rig. We're all inside, now ashes, ashes hall. Falls down my hand, scrabbled wildly against whatever was choking me, and I felt my nails tear through it, with a sickening rip-warm fluid spraying across my face. As the pressure suddenly released, I gasped for air, coughing and gagging as I grabbed the wheel, just in time to keep the rig from plowing into the trees. And as the headlights blinked back on, I saw the road ahead had changed, no longer straight, no longer familiar. It was a spiraling descent winding, down into darkness, the asphalt cracked and steaming like the mouth of some vast underground furnace. And faintly, I could see shapes moving down their massive hulking things with too many limbs, and faces watching me, waiting, their mouths opening in perfect unison to scream welcome home hall. I slammed my foot down so hard on the accelerator, I thought I might snap the damn pedal clean off the floor, but the rig responded with a deep metallic growl of the engine, screaming in protest. As I barreled down the spiraling road, the smell of burning rubber filling the cab, my hands locked on the wheel in a death grip, because I knew if I let go even for a second, I'd be swallowed whole by whatever was waiting at the bottom. The shapes below writhed in the darkness, their massive forms shifting and twisting with too many limbs and faces that weren't quite human, their eyes glowing faint red, like dying coals, staring straight up at me, as their mouths opened wide, letting out a sound. I'll never forget, a low droning hum that vibrated in my bones, making my teeth ache and my vision blur. And through it all, I could still hear the children singing, their voices growing louder, as if they were right there in the cab with me. Round and round halls, wheels go round, down, down, downy. Goes my breath, came in. Sharp, ragged gasps, every muscle in my body screaming from the strain of keeping the rig steady as the road narrowed, the spirals tightening into a corkscrew, the center walls on either side slick with something dark, and what that splattered against my windshield. As I plowed through it, I hit the wipers, but they only smeared the mess across the glass, leaving streaks that looked disturbingly like claw marks. Then the CB hissed and popped, and the voice came back deeper. Now, almost inhuman, you're here. Boy, you made a home, I screamed back, and oh, this isn't real, this isn't real. But even as I shouted, I could feel the truth sinking in heavy and cold like a stone in my gut. This wasn't a nightmare. This wasn't a hallucination. I was here, wherever here was. And there was no turning back. The steering wheel began to vibrate violently like the rig itself was fighting me, trying to throw me out, and let whatever was in the sleeper take the seat. I could hear it moving back, their now heavy footfalls slow and deliberate, the curtain bulging as long, pale fingers curled around the edge, pulling it back inch by inch. I refused to look. I couldn't look, because I knew if I saw its face, if I saw it wear my face, I'd lose the last shred of sanity I was clinging to. But then a cold, wet hand gripped my shoulder, and a voice that was almost mine whispered in my ear, "Time, the trade seats. Hall, you've been driving too long." I shouted a no, and slammed the brakes hard enough to send the trailer fishtailing behind me, the rig shrieking as tires screamed against the slick black surface. I felt the thing's grip slip as the inertia flung it backward, and I floored again, praying the old girl had one last burst of speed and her spirals were gone, now replaced by a bridge stretching into endless darkness, narrow and crumbling supports groaning. As I roared across them, chunks of concrete breaking loose and vanishing into the abyss below and ahead, I saw a light faint at first, but growing brighter, a pale bluish glow that made the darkness recoil, and for the first time in what felt like years, I felt a flicker of hope. The voices in the cab screamed and raged, the children, the thing in the sleeper, all of them howling. As if the light was burning them, I focused on it, eyes locked steady. As I pushed the rig harder and harder, the engine roaring in defiance, the glow grew and grew until it was all I could see, and then with final deafening roar, the rig burst through the light. The light swallowed me whole, so bright it burned my eyes even with the visor down, and for a moment I felt weightless, like the rig wasn't even touching the road anymore, just floating in endless white. My ears rang with a high-pitched tone, and all I could hear underneath, it was my own heartbeat pounding, so loud it shook my chest. I blinked against the blinding glow, gripping the wheel tighter than ever, whispering, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop," like some kind of prayer. And then, just as suddenly as it came, the light vanished, and the rig slammed back on asphalt with a bone-jarring crash, the tires squealing as sparks flew from under the chassis. I let out a strangled gasp, lungs burning like I'd been holding my breath for hours, and I blinked to the tears in my eyes, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The highway was back, or at least it looked like a familiar cracked blacktop stretching out ahead. The yellow lines faded, but there the sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky orange and red, and for a split second, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd made it out. But then I noticed the silence, no engine noise, no more tires against asphalt, no birds, no wind, nothing. Just dead air like the world itself was holding its breath. I eased off the accelerator, my foot trembling, as the rig coasted to crawl. The fuel gauge, still full, the clock still stuck at 3:33, and my stomach sank, deep, cold dread pooling in my gut. Because I realized I hadn't escaped, I'd just crossed into another layer, whatever hell this was. I reached for the CB, desperate for a voice, any voice. But all I got was static faint at first, then rising until it was a deafening roar like a hurricane trapped in the speakers. And underneath it, a voice so low and guttural, I felt it more than heard it. "You're still here, Hall, still driving, still ours." I ripped the mic from its cradle and hurled it into the passenger, footwell in my hands, shaking so bad I almost lost. The wheel. Then from the sleeper came a sound that froze. The blood in my veins, a slow, deliberate clap, 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 and a voice that was my own, but wrong, stretched too thin, and crackling like old tape. "Good job. Driver, you're learning the road. Never ends, not for us, not for you." I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but all I could do was keep my eyes forward, because I knew if I looked back I'd see it sitting there in my bunk, wearing my face, grinning, wide, its eyes bottomless pits, weeping oily black tears, and I couldn't face that. Not now, not ever. I swallowed hard and pushed the throttle down steady and firm, the engine finally rumbling back to life like it knew there was no stopping, no rest, not for me, not for anyone who'd been marked by the loop. And as I drove on the horizon, stretched out endlessly, never getting closer, never changing, and the faint sound of children singing echoed in my ears round, and round the wheels keep spinning down, and down the soles keep thinning, ashes, ashes, Hall falls down. I kept my foot steady on the pedal, eyes fixed dead ahead, because I knew if I glanced in the mirror, even for a second, I'd see it there in the sleeper, its long gray fingers drumming on the edge of my bunk, its grin so wide it would split my face clean in two, and those bottomless black eyes leaking that thick tar like ooze down its sagging cheeks. I could hear it breathing, though wet and heavy like lungs full of water, each exhale rattling through the cab louder than the roar of the engine as it whispered over and over again, "You're one of us now, Hall, one of us, one of us." I tried to drown out, humming an old country tune under my breath, the same one I used to sing on night drives back before the road turned into this endless nightmare. But no matter how loud I hummed, I could still hear the children singing to their voices coming from everywhere, the sleep of the vents of radio, the damn air itself ring around the highway, pockets full of cries. "Ashes, ashes," a trucker dies. I gritted my teeth, fighting the urge to slam my fist against the wheel, because I knew rage wouldn't save me, panic wouldn't save me, nothing would save me except keeping these wheels turning. Maybe not even that, but it was all I had left. I don't know how long I drove, could have been hours, days, weeks. The sun never moved, the sky stuck in that eternal orange twilight, like the world was frozen in time, and every now and then the road would ripple like heat haze, and I'd see things moving in the distance, things that shouldn't exist, hulking forms with too many legs crawling across the asphalt, dragging long tails that carved deep grooves into blacktop, and massive eyes glowing faintly red, watching me unblinking. I'd floor it every time, praying the engine wouldn't fail, praying the tires wouldn't blow, praying I wouldn't feel those cold, spindly fingers wrapping around my neck again. Sometimes I'd hear voices crackling faintly on the CB, other truckers maybe, or what used to be truckers, their words broken by static like ghosts trapped in the machine, warning me, "Don't stop, don't pull over, don't look back." And I'd nod to no one, whispering, I know. But even as I said it, I felt the exhaustion creeping like a weight behind my eyes, my lids heavy, my mind foggy. And I thought about pulling over just for a minute, just close my eyes, but then I felt a hand resting gently on my shoulder, cold and slick as oil, and a voice almost tender whispering, "Go ahead, Hall, rest, I'll drive for a while." I roared an oath so loud my throat burned, and I yanked the wheel hard to the left and hard to the right, fighting not just a rig, but whatever unseen force was trying to guide my hands. Off the road, the bridge beneath me groaned, louder boards snapping and falling away into the endless black below as the entire rig shuddered like it might come apart at any second. But I didn't let up. I kept the pedal slammed to the floor, eyes locked on the faint shimmer of road ahead, and the sound of screaming voices rising from the depths all around me. Hollow, hello. They cried in unison, dozens, maybe hundreds of them, some deep and guttural, some high-pitched and childlike, all overlapping until it sounded like the wails of the damned. And still, I didn't dare look down, I didn't dare listen, because I knew if I'd see their pale hands reaching up from the darkness, fingers writhing, grasping, desperate to pull me down into That pit within the hand on my shoulder dug in deeper, now nails biting, into my skin to the jacket, until I felt warm blood trickling down my back, and the thing's voice hissed so close to my ear I could almost feel its tongue. "You can't drive forever Hall sooner, or later you gotta park." I slammed my fist into the dashboard, screaming, "I'll never park, you hear me, never." And for the briefest moment the grip on my shoulder faltered just enough for me to wrench free. I didn't think I'd just reach for the old tire iron I kept, wedged between the seat and door, and swung it. Blindly behind me, the iron connected with something soft and wet with a sickening crunch followed by a deafening screech that rattled the windows, and in the rear-view mirror I saw my own twisted reflection, its head snapped sideways, mouth gaping unnaturally wide, as black ichor poured from the wound where I'd struck it, and those hollow eyes burning with hate. But it didn't stop smiling, not for a second. It just whispered in a voice that was still mine: "Drive all you want, Hall, but the road never. Ends not for you, not for us." I tore my eyes back to the road just in time to see the end of the bridge up ahead, and beyond it blessed solid highway stretching out into the horizon, bathed in pale morning light. My heart leapt as I pushed the rig even harder, the engine roaring like a wounded animal as the tires hit the end of the bridge with a jolt, nearly tearing the trailer loose. But we made it. I let out a strangled laugh, half relief, half madness, as I realized I was back on blacktop. But before I could catch my breath, I noticed something wrong. The horizon wasn't getting closer no matter how far I drove. The road stretched endlessly, the scenery frozen like a photograph, and the clock on the dash still blinked 3:33 over and over as a new sound rose from the sleeper's slow, deliberate clapping, and a low, wet chuckle, my own voice, whispering, "Good job, driver. Welcome to your route forever." I tightened my grip on the wheel so hard my fingers cramped, blood dripping from where my nails had cut into my own palms, as that slow, mocking clap echoed from the sleeper, each slap a palm against palm louder than the last, until it sounded like thunder rolling to the cab. The voice behind me whispered again, soft and wet and smug, "Just keep those wheels turning, Hall. You're one of us now. You always were." My teeth ground together so hard I thought they might crack, and I shouted back over the roar of the engine and the pounding in my skull, "I'm not done. I'll drive this damn road until the tires melt and the engine blows. I'll drive until the sun comes up and the world is whole again." But deep down, I could feel the truth clawing at the edges of my mind. The sun wasn't coming up, the world wasn't whole anymore, and this road wasn't leading me anywhere except deeper into whatever hell I'd stumbled into. Horizon shimmered faintly, and I swore I saw shadows moving their massive shapes with too many limbs crawling across the blacktop, dragging behind them a sound like chains and bone. And every so often I passed road signs bent and twisted, letters smeared over in something dark and sticky, but always the same message: "Welcome, Hall." And beneath it in smaller writing, "Park here." I ignored them, every single one, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the road ahead, even as the cab seemed to close in around me, the air thick and heavy with the stench of rotten diesel and burned hair. My eyelids felt like leave my body, screaming for rest. But I didn't dare. I couldn't dare, because I knew what would happen if I stopped. I could hear them now, voices whispering from everywhere, from the vents, from the CB, from the sleeper, "Hall, Hall, Hall," over and over a chorus of the damned, and mixing was my own voice laughing low, and what like oil gurgling to drain. My hands trembled on the wheel muscles, cramping, but I forced them steady as the speedometer needle hovered at 80, the fuel gauge still full, the odometer frozen, and the clock blinking 3:33 in that steady mocking rhythm. And then I heard it, faint at first, but growing louder, a rhythmic pounding like footsteps pacing back and forth across the roof of the cab, and a child's voice singing softly off-key, "Round and round the trucker drives, round and round, he never arrives." I bit my lip so hard it split, copper blood filling my mouth, as I whispered to no one, "Not me, not yet," and floored the gas again, praying the old girl would hold together, even as the engine wailed in protest, and the rig shuddered hard enough to rattle my teeth. The rig screamed beneath me like it was alive, the metal frame groaning in protest, as I pushed it harder and harder, the tires howling against the blacktop. That didn't feel like asphalt anymore, but something softer, almost spongy, like driving over flesh, and I swore I could see faint impressions of hands and faces pressing up to the road surface, reaching for the wheels, trying to pull me under. I didn't blink, I didn't breathe, I just kept hammer down, whispering through clenched teeth, "Not me, not ever." And from the sleeper the slow clap came again, louder, heavier, like 1,000 hands in unison, and that voice, my voice, twisted, and what spoke again: "You're a stubborn one, Hall, But the road always wins, always. I shook my head, violently gripping the wheel so tight. I felt tendons in my arms scream in pain. But I couldn't let go. I wouldn't let go. I'm a trucker, damn it. This is my rig, my road, my rules. And I'll die before I let it take me, I could. Hear laughter now, a dozen voices, maybe more all. Around me some high, like giggling children, others deep and guttural, like something that had never been human, all of them overlapping like a broken radio. And then the CB crackled a new voice breaking through hoarse and panic haul. You still there, buddy? It's Jenkins, you gotta listen to me. I froze, my heart hammering. Jenkins was a guy I'd run with years back on a few long hauls, good man, solid driver. But he disappeared without a trace. Last I heard, his rig was found on the shoulder of I. 80-door wide open engine still running, but no sign of him. I grabbed a mic hand, shaking. Jenkins, that you? Where the hell are you? His voice came back ragged like he was running, or maybe crying. Don't matter where I'm hauled, listen to me. You can't get out once you're marked. They own the road now, they own you. I swallowed hard, tasting bile in the back of my throat. What the hell do I do? Then his answer came after a long pause, like he hated himself for saying it. Park Hall Park. And let them take you. It's the only way to end it. I screamed into Mike, N.O. I ain't parking, I'll die behind this wheel. Before I give in, the laughter from the sleeper rose louder, higher, until it felt like the whole cab was vibrating with it, and that cold, wet voice whispered, so close I could feel its lips brush my ear. Good boy, I'll drive and drive and drive forever. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was too tight. My lungs burned with every breath. But I kept the pedal buried, kept my eyes locked on that endless stretch of road, even as it started to ripple and twist like something alive, the painted lines bending into jagged symbols that seemed to crawl across the asphalt. I whispered to myself over and over like a prayer, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. Because I knew if I stopped, if I even slowed, they'd swarm. Me, the pale hands, the children, the thing. In the sleeper, all of them waiting, just waiting for me to give in, and from the back of the cab, I heard it moving again, slow, deliberate footsteps, crossing the sleeper toward me, and that voice so soft, and what felt like it was crawling into my ear. You can't do this forever, Hall. But I can drive your rig, your route, your body. Just pull over, let go. I clenched my jaw so hard, I thought my teeth might crack, sweat pouring down my face as I forced the rig fast to the engine, screaming the frame. Shaking like it was about to fly apart, I saw road signs flash by, bent, rusted, every single one the same, 2 words, park here. And beneath, in smaller letters, will be waiting. I growled low under my breath, not today, not ever, and forced my eyes forward, even as movement flickered at the edges of my vision, long gray limbs unfolding from the shadows beside the road, huge faceless things crawling on all fours, keeping pace with the rig, their heads turning to. Follow me, blank eyes, weeping black eye core, and mouths opening wide in silent screams. My breath came fast, a panic clawing at my chest. But I couldn't let the wheel slip from my hands, and the CB hissed, and Jenkins' voice cut through again, desperate pleading. Haul, you're running on borrowed time, man. The longer you fight, the worse it gets. You'll see things, hear things. You can't come back. From my spat back voice raw from screaming. I already have Jenkins, and I'm still driving. The static swallowed his reply, and then the children's voices rose again, louder, higher, until it felt like they were in the cab with me, singing their twisted nursery rhyme. Round and round the trucker drives, never home, and never arrives. Ashes, ashes, Hall falls down. I slammed my fist against the dashboard so hard the plastic cracked, and splintered, pain shooting up my arm. But I didn't care. I had to stay awake, had to keep my hands on the wheel, because the second I let go it would be over. I could feel like a predator just out of sight waiting for me to falter. The rig roared beneath me, tires screeching, as I forced it fast to the speedometer needle, quivering past its limits, and the whole cab vibrating so violently I thought it might shake itself apart. But I didn't dare slow down. The road ahead shimmered like a mirage, bending and twisting, until it looked more like the inside of some massive creature's throat, the yellow lines pulsing faintly like veins, the air thick with the smell of rotten diesel, and something sweet and cloying like spoiled meat. And from behind me, that voice, my voice, only wrong, stretched and wet and gleeful, whispered again, you're so close, Hall. So close to letting go I can feel. I growled through gritted teeth. And oh, this is my rig, my road. And I yanked the wheel hard to avoid a pale hand that shot up from the asphalt, clawing at my tires' fingers. So long, they scraped the trailer, leaving deep grooves in the metal as it was dragged under the tires. With a wet crunch, the cab shuddered, but I held steady, refusing to let it pull me off course. The CB crackled suddenly, and Jenkins' voice came through again, broken, choked like He was crying, "Hall, listen to me. They're not going to stop, they'll keep coming until there's nothing left of you. You gotta end at park, let them take the rig, take you." I shouted back an "oh, damn it, an oh," and ripped the mic from its mount, hurling into the sleeper, where it clanged against a bulkhead, and for a split second the laughter stopped silence, filling the cab, so thick it pressed against my eardrums, and then a single sharp wet sound like a tongue clicking against teeth echoed from the sleeper, followed by the thing's voice low, "And cold, you're a fighter, Hall, good that. Just means we get to play longer." The headlights flickered once, twice, then cut out, plunging me into blackness, and I screamed as I felt cold, wet fingers wrap around mine, on the wheel squeezing tight, until my bones ached trying to pry my hands free. But I held on, screaming through clenched teeth, "I'm not yours, I'll never be yours," the rig roared back to life, headlights flaring. So bright it blinded me for a heartbeat, and when my vision cleared a road, had changed again, a narrow bridge of bone and sinew, stretched over a black abyss. And from below, thousands of faces stared up at me, mouths open in soundless screams, as they chanted in unison, "Drive, Hall, drive forever." I could feel my heart pounding so hard in my chest it felt like it was trying to punch its way out. My hands were slick with sweat, but I didn't dare loosen my grip on the wheel, because those cold, wet fingers were still there, wrapped around mine, their touch icy enough to burn, digging their nails into my knuckles as the rig thundered across that sickening bridge of bone and flesh, the tires bouncing and skidding on its uneven surface with every mile the faces below grew clearer, twisted, pale visages, with hollow eyes and gaping mouths whispering my name in perfect unison, "Hall, Hall, Hall," each syllable stretching like they were savoring it. I swallowed hard, tasting bile in the back of my throat, and whispered through cracked lips, "Not stopping, not now, not ever." And from the sleeper came that slow, deliberate clap again, louder now, like a stadium full of people cheering me on, and the voice, my voice but wrong, soaked in glee, whispered, "You'll burn out, Hall, you'll burn up, and then you'll be mine." The cab shook violently, the mirrors rattling as shadows writhed and stretched across the windshield, their long fingers smearing black streaks across the glass. I blinked hard, fighting the exhaustion claw at my brain, but my eyelids fell heavier with every second, like someone had poured concrete over them. And then from the CB, a new voice broke through, faint, almost a whisper, "Hall, Hall, is that you?" My blood ran cold, because it wasn't Jenkins's voice, was smaller, softer, familiar, somehow. Daddy? "It's so cold out here," I froze, my knuckles whitening as I gripped the wheel tighter. No. This wasn't real, it couldn't be real. But the voice came again, broken and sobbing, "Please, Daddy, I'm so tired. Can I ride with you?" My eyes burned with tears, blurring the road ahead. But I shook my head violently, screaming, "Oh, you're not her, you're not my little girl." And the laughter that followed was high-pitched, cruel, like a child mocking from the shadows from behind me. I felt a cold breath against my ear, and that same soft voice whispered, "Daddy, you left me here. Don't you want to see me?" I screamed, my throat raw, shut up, and slammed the accelerator harder, forcing the rig forward. As the bridge began to crumble behind me, slabs of bone and tendons snapping and falling away into the screaming abyss, the rig lurched violently, tires barely gripping, as the cab rocked side to side. But I didn't slow, I couldn't, because I knew if I let up even for a second, they'd pull me down into that pit where I'd drive and drive forever with all the other lost souls. The rig slammed down hard as the last chunk of that grotesque bridge gave way behind me, the sound of bones shattering and flesh tearing echoing up from the abyss like 1,000 voices screaming at once. I didn't dare look back. I didn't dare slow down. My foot was welded to the accelerator, and my fingers felt like they fused the wheel. But the laughter hadn't stopped. It was louder now, shrill, and wet like it was bubbling up from every vent, every speaker, every inch of the cab, and over it all, that sickeningly sweet voice still whispering in my ear, "Daddy, you're almost out of road. Where will you go when there's no more road?" I shook my head violently, sweat dripping into my eyes, stinging as I growled through gritted teeth, "There's always more road. As long as I'm breathing, there's more." And the headlights flickered again, sputtering, as shadows rippled across the windshield, shapes too big to comprehend, writhing just beyond the reach of the beams, their massive eyes glowing faintly like coals in a dying fire, watching me, following me. I could hear their claws scraping along the asphalt, keeping pace with the rig. But I didn't look. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. My chest burned with every breath, my vision tunnel black, creeping in from the edges. But I forced myself to focus, forcing my mind to stay sharp, as I muttered over and over, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop." And then the CB crackled to life, static hissing, and a voice I hadn't heard in years broke through, "Hall, is that really My heart stuttered because I knew that voice had belonged to Mackie, old Mackie, who'd taught me the ropes when I was green. He'd vanished one night, running a load through Nevada, his rig found idling on the side of the 50 with the driver's door hanging open, no trace of him haul. Mackie said his voice, tired, broken, you're in a loop. Now, ain't ya? They got you too? I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as dust. Yeah, I croaked. They got me aside, came back long, and hollow ain't no. Getting out, son, you can run. But it don't end you just driving in circles like the rest of us. I clench my jaw, shaking my head, no. I'll find a way, I'll drive until the wheels fall off. Mackie laughed. But there was no humor in it, just despair. That's what I said too. Just keep your eyes forward, and maybe it won't hurt so bad. When the road finally eats you, I slam my fist against the dash, screaming, I'm not done yet, and forced the rig fast to the engine, howling like a wounded animal, as the clock on the dash still blinked. 3:33 over and over and over. The dashboard rattled so hard, I thought it would shake itself apart, the gauges flickering wildly as the fuel needle stayed pinned on full, and the clock refused to budge, still flashing 3:33 in that slow mocking blink. Like a heartbeat, I gripped the wheel tighter, ignoring the burning in my arms, the ache in my back, my eyes stinging from sweat and exhaustion, because if I let go for even a second, I knew it would be over. I could still hear Mackie's voice, crackling through the CB, faint now like he was. Being pulled away, his last words barely audible, keep driving, son. Don't let it sit, don't ever park. Then static swallowed him whole. And I was alone again, or at least as alone as I could be with the thing in the sleeper. I felt it move behind me, the air turning cold and damp like the inside of a freezer, its wet breath brushing my neck, as it whispered, almost tender, haul, you've been strong. But everyone parks eventually, let me drive for you. I clenched my teeth hard enough to make my jaw pop. And oh, this is my rig, MY road, MY rules, and I forced the throttle down, further the engine screaming in protest as the rig roared ahead. But the scenery wasn't changing no matter how fast. I went the endless stretch of highway locked in that same dim twilight, the horizon rippling faintly like a mirage, and from the corners of my eyes, I could see the shadows moving again, long limbs dragging across the asphalt, massive pale, faces rising from the ditches to watch me. Past their hollow eyes, leaking black ichors, they mouthed words I couldn't hear but fell in my bones. Stop, stop, stop. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood, and muttered, not me, not ever over. And over like a prayer the children's voices came back, then rising from the vents and the speakers, and the sleeper in perfect harmony, their sing-song voices sickly sweet round, and round the trucker drives round, and round, he's not alive, ashes, ashes, haul falls down. I shouted over them, voice raw from screaming, shut up, I'm still here, I'm still driving, and for a moment just a heartbeat, the cab went completely silent, no voices, no whispers, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. But then the laughter came back, louder than ever, deep and wet and inhuman, and the rig's lights flickered, plunging me into darkness, as that cold voice hissed in my ear, you can't run. Forever, driver, this road belongs to us now, and so do you. I screamed so loud my throat tore raw and the sound bounced off the cab walls. But it didn't scare the thing behind me. It didn't even flinch. I could feel its grin widening, stretching impossibly far, until I swore I heard the skin of its face split. Like wet fabric, its breath poured over my neck, thick and sour and heavy with the center rot, as it whispered again, softer, now almost coaxing, let go, haul, you're just a passenger. Now the wheel's not yours. Any more the rig's not yours, the road's not yours. I gritted my teeth, tasting copper from where I'd bitten my own tongue, and shouted over the engine's roar, this is my rig, my road, and I'll drive it until the end you hear me. The laughter rose higher and higher, mingling with the children's voices, their broken nursery rhyme, echoing to the vents and the CB, and even hum the tires on the asphalt round, and round the driver cries round and round, until he dies, ashes, ashes, haul falls down. My hands were cramping, my knuckles bone white, and I could feel my arms trembling from sheer exhaustion, but I forced them steady because I knew if I faltered for even a second, the thing would take my place. My eyes burned as I blinked hard, trying to focus on the road ahead. But it wasn't really a road anymore. It was twisting now, coiling like a snake beneath the wheels, the painted lines glowing faintly red like old blood. And in the distance, I could see shapes crawling across it, huge pale forms with too many limbs and no faces, dragging themselves forward, their movements jerky and unnatural like marionettes on tangled strings. They were waiting for me. I could feel their heads turning as one as the rig barreled toward them. I shouted over the sound of the engine, bring on, I'll drive. through every damn one of you and pushed the accelerator to the floor. The engine howled in protest as the needle buried itself past the max, and the cab shook so hard I thought it might tear itself apart, and still. The voices whispered, "Don't fight it, Hall. Don't fight, we'll take care of you forever. Just park." I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached and growled back, "I'd rather die behind this wheel than ever park." And the thing in the sleeper let out a long, wet sigh. So close, I felt its lips brush my ear before it whispered, "Then die, you shall drive or die, and drive forever." The rig roared like a caged beast straining against its own limits. As I forced it fast, a vibration so violent I could feel the bolts rattling loose beneath my feet. The mirrors shook until the glass spiderweb. But I didn't care, I couldn't care, because slowing down wasn't an option. Not here. Not ever. The shapes ahead grew larger now, their pale, boneless forms riding across the twisted road, dragging themselves forward with limbs that bent the wrong way, their eyeless faces turning toward me. As one mouth gaping impossibly wide in silent screams, I felt my stomach churn by a rise in my throat, but I tightened my grip on the wheel until my nails split against the leather, my voice cracking as I shouted, "I don't care what you are, I'm coming through," and I slammed the horn, the sound blasting out like a war cry that seemed to shake the very air. For a moment, the things froze, twitching like marionettes with cut strings, and then they scattered, pulling themselves off the road into the darkness, but not fast enough. The rig hit. The first one with a sickening crunch, the cab lurching as the tires rolled over something soft, and wet black ichor sprang across the windshield as more of them shrieked and scrambled out of the way. But I didn't let up, didn't flinch, didn't slow, because I knew if I gave them even an inch, they'd be on me, dragging me out of the driver's seat. And into that endless night, the laughter from the sleeper rose louder, higher. 1,000 voices overlapping now, men, women, children, all of them chanting in perfect unison, "Drive, Hall, drive." Forever the clock on the dash still blinked 3:33 over and over, and I could see my own reflection in the cracked glass, pale, gaunt eyes sunken so deep they looked hollow, black ichor dripping from the corners of my mouth as my lips twisted into a grin that wasn't mine. I tore my eyes back to the road, shaking my head violently as I screamed, "I'm still me, I'm still here," and for a heartbeat the cab fell silent, even the engine's roar, muffled like I'd been plunged under water. Then the cold, wet hand returned, fingers curling over mine, on the wheel squeezing so hard I felt bones creak as that voice whispered, so close I could feel in my teeth, "You're not driving, Hall. We are, we always were." I screamed so hard my vision blurred, veins standing out of my neck. As I fought against that icy grip on my hands, the wheel slick with sweat, and something thicker, darker, like the black ichor leaking from the thing behind me. I could feel its nails digging into my knuckles, cold and sharp, drawing thin lines of blood. But I didn't let go. I couldn't let go, because the second I did, I knew I'd be gone, swallowed up like Mackie, like Jenkins, like all the other voices I'd heard on the CB. The rig shook violently, tires screaming as they skidded over the writhing road, the yellow lines now pulsing like veins glowing faint red with every beat, as if the highway itself had a heart deep below the asphalt. I shouted over the roar of the engine, and the laughter that now seemed to be coming from everywhere, the vents, the speakers, the very metal of the cab itself. "I'm still the driver, damn it. This is my rig, my route, my rules." The cold, wet breath brushed my ear again, the voice low and slick with amusement. "You were never the driver, Hall. You were just along for the ride." I growled through gritted teeth, "Not yet," and slammed my fist against the horn, the sound blaring out like a defiant scream, echoing across the twisted horizon. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze the road, the voices, even the thing's grip on my hands. Then, with a deafening shriek, the rig lurched forward, like it had been released from invisible chains. The headlights flared brighter than ever, illuminating the road ahead, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There was no end, no off-ramp, no exit, just more of that living asphalt stretching into forever. The pale shapes now standing on either side of the highway, their eyeless faces turned toward me, mouths moving in perfect unison as they whispered, "Park, park, park." But I didn't listen. I couldn't listen. I forced the accelerator down harder, even as the cab rattled like it was about to shake itself apart, the dashboard lights flickering and dying until only the clock remained 3:33. Blinking steadily like a heartbeat that would never stop, and the children's voices rose again, their song twisting into something almost gleeful. Round and round the trucker goes, round and round the nightmare grows. Ashes, ashes, Hall drives down. My hands were cramping so bad I could barely feel my fingers anymore, but I wouldn't let go of the wheel. Felt like it had grown roots into my palms, like it was part of me now, and maybe this rig was my coffin, my prison, my eternity. I didn't care as long as I was still moving the road stretched out ahead of me endless, and twisted the yellow lines glowing faintly like veins of sky frozen in that dim orange twilight where the sun never rose and never set, and I whispered to myself over and over, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving, because I knew the second I stopped it would all be over in the sleeper. I could hear it still clapping slow and deliberate, that wet voice chuckling low. And cruel, you've done so well, haul better than most. But even you will park someday. I shook my head violently, gritting my teeth, until my jaw ached and spat back, not of me. I'll drive until there's nothing left to drive on, and for a moment just a breath there was. Silence, no laughter, no voices, no whispers. Only the sound of the engine roaring beneath me and the tires humming over that cursed blacktop, and in that fragile moment of peace, I almost believed I could make out, almost believed there was an end to this road. But then the clock on the dash blinked 3:34, and my stomach dropped as the laughter exploded from all around me, louder than ever, echoing my skull, as 1,000 voices cried in unison, your home, now haul the road, never ends. And the horizon shifted, twisted into a perfect loop until I could see my own taillights up ahead fading into the distance, and I realized I was chasing myself around and around forever, trapped on this cursed stretch of highway where time didn't move and the dead never rested. I let out a long, broken laugh that turned into a sob, gripping the wheel tighter, as I whispered to no one, to everyone, to whatever gods or demons were listening. Fine, then I'll be your driver. I'll drive your damned road. I'll drive it forever. And as the rig barreled forward, swallowed by the endless loop, I swore, I felt the highway itself breathe beneath me, warm and alive and waiting. And maybe this is what eternity feels like, the wheels turning round and round, the engine humming steady, my hands fused to the wheel, my eyes locked on the horizon, knowing there's no exit, no finish line, just blacktop and shadows and voices singing softly from the vents. Ashes, ashes, haul falls down. And if you're hearing this, if you're ever out there on a lonely stretch of highway late at night and you think you see a rig just like mine up ahead, taillights glowing faint red, don't try to catch up, don't honk, don't call out, because it's me and I'm still driving, still here, still trapped. And if you get too close, if you let the road take you too, you'll be sitting right here beside me, hands on the wheel, eyes on the endless blacktop, driving and driving and driving forever. And that's the story, folks, true or not, you decide. But next time you're on a long stretch of highway at 3:33 in the morning, maybe keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel, because you never know what's waiting out there or who's still out there driving.